Okay guys, so for today's video, we're doing something a little bit different. I got the chance to sit down with the CEO of Merkur Games, the team behind Echoes of the End, and talk to him about their development process as a brand new studio from Iceland, making a game from scratch, lessons learned during that process, what they would have done differently, and he also was an open book when it came to the launch of the game, which was pretty rough, and how they dealt with that feedback and worked their butts off for months to now completely come out the other end with very positive Steam reviews and everything. It's a pretty remarkable story, and it's, I think, a testament to what a team is capable of doing when they put their heads down and are just willing to listen to the feedback, even when it's hard to hear, listen to the feedback and work to make the best possible game. He was a fascinating person to talk to. Again, I'm very humbled he wanted to chat. Thank you, of course, to the team and for them sponsoring the video, because it was very difficult to find a time that worked well for Haldor to sit down and talk. Very busy guy. They're working on their next game right now, which I tried to get info about, but he was tight-lipped. But overall, it was a really cool time, and if you've ever been interested in game design, I think this is a fascinating story to learn about. So let's just get into it. To start off, could you just introduce yourself? Let everybody know who you are, your role.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. My name is Halldór Snær, spelling provided in the edit. I'm the CEO and game director here over at Merkur Games, an Icelandic studio who just released Echoes of the End last year.
Could you give the pitch to anybody who might not be familiar with the game so they can understand what it is, what you kind of help them understand it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Echoes of the End is a narrative action adventure. It's on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox, and it's actually on PlayStation Plus as well right now. But the game is basically about this main protagonist called Rin and her kind of buddy companion called Abram. They're both portrayed by Icelandic actors, and we take a lot of Iceland into this game with the scanning and all of that. But really, it is kind of a fantasy adventure that you step into, and the main offerings of the game, or the main features that people are going to probably get drawn to, are the combat, the puzzles, the platforming, and the story, which kind of glues it all together and is the driving force of the game. We decided to make a new IP with this game. So one of the big things that we kind of took into this new adventure of ours was to, we were seeing a lot of sequels at the time where we were kind of building this project up, and we were super interested to just try and create a new fantasy world, somewhat inspired by Iceland. Doesn't take place here at all, but somewhat inspired by Iceland, and see what we could come up with. Yeah, if you're playing action adventure games, I don't know, Witcher, God of War, any of those types of games, this is probably right up your alley.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, it thoroughly impressed me how you guys are, the phrase I would use, punching above your weight class. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to find out that the team is small. This is their first project, and you guys are doing things that were not that long ago considered only possible for like the biggest of the biggest, $100 million games. It's pretty remarkable. I just have to ask, because I've always been fascinated, of course, shocker, by game development and how studios even start. Like, I don't even know where you begin. Like, what's your background in the industry, in games? What made you even want to begin this? Like, how did you get here, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, for sure. It's well, I was into games since I was a kid, so I was really that set on going into the industry. Like, I was actually applying for jobs at 12, and my mom was like, no, I need to wrap up school. Like, this doesn't work. And so I was looking to move to France to work for Blizzard. I was like, that's set on it. So I knew I was going there. But in terms of founding the company, it was kind of just luck. I was still in school in university, and I got randomly assigned with these two other guys. And we did a game in 3 weeks, and we just, we worked around the clock on it. We had, obviously the passion, and we really enjoyed working with each other. So from that, doing some smaller projects that didn't pan out, we kind of, at the end of that, kind of took stock of what we wanted to do, and we were at an opportunity to kind of take a big risk. And we decided to kind of, started shaping this vision at that time, and that vision then ended up being Echoes of the End. But it took us 8-9 years to get that one out the door.
That's crazy. Like, Echoes of the End, when you see the final product, and especially with all the updates and improvements you guys have made, it's a very cohesive project. But was it always like this, or was it I imagine a process of iteration, and maybe when it started, it was very different. Like, how was that process like?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of iteration. When we started, the thing that really hurt the most was the inexperience for us. I mean, we're just still coming out of university. We'd never run a studio. We'd never even, shipped the game for that matter. So coming into this really green. Over time, we brought in up, we ended up being around 40 people who worked on the game, did it all basically in-house. And there was a lot of learnings through that journey. I mean, we started with the fundamentals, really, building and testing the pipelines. Why we chased a project like this was really because we saw what was happening in the industry as a whole. We saw that motion capture was becoming more accessible, photogrammetry was beginning to take a foothold. And then Unreal Engine 5 felt like it was something like that was coming. So we're really happy that it did. And so we really just started laying out those fundamentals, ended up building our own motion capture studio and scanning, a lot of places in Iceland for the game, kind of based on those timelines. But in terms of project itself, I would say that we probably had like 2 full reboots of the project. It stuck to the core vision. Don't get me wrong. We didn't like do a hard pivot in terms of the destination and the goal, but we tried out some early prototypes that really didn't pan out. An earlier iteration had stealth in the game, and not the live version.
Yeah, I just always find it so fascinating because lots of game devs have said the fact that any game ships is a miracle. I mean, it's an absolute miracle, and so I'm always fascinated at how you make the choices and then you cut the things that you do and you keep the things that you keep. It's just a fascinating process, and how different things could be if you just made 1 or 2 different changes. When you were building Echoes of the End, like what were some of those guiding principles? Like what were some of those things that made you choose to go this way or that way, cut this, keep that? Like how do you navigate those choices?
Yeah, it's really difficult. And you're totally right. Like getting a game out the door is incredibly hard, especially for a first time studio, first time team, first time a lot of people on that team as well. And finding our way through that, it was really painful to kind of make all these mistakes throughout the process. But we're all the wiser for it, and thanks to that fantastic team, we did manage to ship the game, which is really, really great. But in terms of like, you're absolutely right. Like in terms of like selecting features and stuff like that, we were really bad at that at the start. We were kind of just going in every which direction. But we learned over time to really kind of shape and hone the main things about the game that we cared the most about. These are often called the game pillars in game design. And really, you start to condition, your thinking along those lines. So if someone's, because it's 40 people contributing to a game, and everybody has ideas, and you need those people to contribute. This is not going to be anyone's baby, but really you have to filter through: is it serving the main design goals? Is it serving the fundamentals of this game? Is it making that better and kind of getting us to a stronger place with that? And still, you could have 10 people in a room and everybody thinks something is a rock solid idea, and you start prototyping it and it completely sucks. So there's also that you have to test and you have to iterate a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, to back up a little more broadly with the game, I actually played through it when you guys reached out, and I had been keeping my eye on the game for a long time, and what was really impressive to me is that you guys are striking well above, at least in my opinion, well above your weight class. I mean, you already mentioned things like photogrammetry, your motion capture, things like that previously you only really saw with like the biggest AAA players, but now to see that a first-time studio, a team that's relatively small, can come swinging with that stuff, it's really impressive. I mean, with your team, is this the type of game that could have existed 10 years ago? Is it the type of game that you could have built before these things and these new technologies became more accessible to you guys? Or is this kind of a new thing to be able to come out swinging with like pretty impressive fidelity and motion capture? It's pretty wild.
Thanks for that, and I know the team's going to appreciate that as well. We put in blood, sweat, and tears to get that through. It's definitely something that would have been very, very hard 10 years ago, like you said. With the thing, like I think you probably talked about this in some of your previous videos and other people as well. But I think what we're seeing in the industry right now is a shift where AA is able to do more. Like 10 years ago, AA was maybe like one game that existed. But now we're kind of seeing a change where small to medium teams are able to pull off some amazing things. I mean, we've seen, Hazelight with It Takes Two and Split Fiction. We've seen Sandbox Interactive with Expedition. and we saw Plague Tale as well. So we're seeing a trajectory where more and more of these games are showing up. And I think that's really cool, because what that means is that those studios can take more creative risks. They can kind of do a game that doesn't have to recoup, 10 million sold copies or something like that. And I think that's for the benefit of everybody, and it's a real cool thing to be happening in the industry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are the types of games that I always tell people, like, small studios that are hungry, that aren't, in the high rise with the $1 billion studio office space, like the teams that are fresh and hungry and are looking to make their mark. They're the ones that tend to, in my opinion, push the industry forward and bring some fresh ideas. I mean, a lot of people's, the big guys today, not that long ago, they were little niche developers. I mean, even like Game of the Year contenders, you mentioned Sandfall with Expedition, they were unheard of a year ago, 2 years ago. With Warhorse with KCD, that was always considered niche, and then it blows up. CDPR with The Witcher. I mean, the OG Witcher, the idea that they'd be where they are today after that game is amazing, But that's why, like, you start with something that maybe has some rough edges, and then you can refine and polish and everything. And you mentioned some of the learnings that you guys have enjoyed over the last few years as you've built this. What are some of those learnings? I mean, as you guys are preparing for what's next, how does completing something like Echoes of the End, and then the post-launch process and everything you've done to overhaul the game, how does that change or inform where you want to go next and what you want to do next?
Oh man, I wish I was this wise when we started the first project and the entire team. We learned a ton, and like I said, it's really painful, because once you're making a project like this and you make mistakes, those just end up being really, really painful. But the entire team, I think, we are already starting on our next project right now. I can't go into the details of that, but just the difference of like how that project is getting off the ground versus the last one. We're going a mile a minute versus then kind of scrambling to figure things out. So really, not only have we learned to work together as a team and as a studio, having shipped the game, but also for us, we kind of know the pitfalls to avoid and what to validate first when we're testing a new feature, new game mechanic, and starting out with much better definitions instead of like art direction and pipelines and stuff like that. Just makes a huge difference for us.
Absolutely. I can only imagine those little things where it's like, remember when this happened a few years ago? Let's not do that.
Yeah.
All those little
There's
things.
a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah. You mentioned there's a lot of Iceland in the game. Of course, just in terms of the environment and the geography. As somebody from Colorado in the United States, it looks straight up fantastical and magical. I can't even imagine living in a place that looks like that. But
have you managed to visit?
I've not. I was actually, fun fact, I was actually supposed to visit Iceland for my honeymoon in 2020. And then 2020 happened, and they were like, you're not going. So we had to pivot and cancel our trip, which is too bad. But I've always wanted to go because it is so different from anything we have. You guys have those majestic cliffs. I have a Taco Bell.
I think we had a live eruption at the time. I don't remember if that was 20 or 21.
Oh yeah,
but there was a live eruption right here next to the airport as well.
That's insane.
So it would have been a cool fly-in, either Northern Lights or lava.
I can only imagine, dude. That's incredible. I mean, well, when you're building something like this, and putting a lot of what is effectively your home into the game, how like, I imagine there's a good bit of pride in that, and in representing some of the soul of your homeland to an audience that's never experienced something like that. And it's my understanding you also put in elements of like mythologies and things from Iceland all throughout the game's DNA. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, like I said, we didn't want to go for, really the Norse mythology, just because, that's been done in various games, referenced in, Assassin's Creed, it's referenced in God of War. And we really wanted to find a new lane in terms of the backstory of the world and in terms of the kind of setup. But really where we draw Iceland into the game is it's almost in every place. Like even if you're playing through the game and you hear bird sounds, these are recorded bird sounds out in Iceland. We have also, the kind of troll enemies in the game are speaking Icelandic, voiced by some of the people at the studio. But also kind of tying into that, obviously, as you mentioned, is the landmarks. I mean, for those who haven't visited Iceland, Iceland is a pretty cool place because, if you travel around the country, you're going to see all these different biomes. And we kind of decided to craft the game. It's 10 chapters or 10 levels kind of in total. And from the get-go, we decided that each chapter, each biome should kind of reflect a corner of Iceland in that sense. So you kind of really get a sightseeing tour of the kind of major notes of Iceland that you could experience. So this is everything from those lava fields that you might have seen here to glaciers and or whatever you can imagine. So really, every part of the game really has some DNA pulled from here locally, which I think helps ground it in something. Because when you're coming up with a new IP, you kind of need to pull from somewhere. It's so hard to just kind of have a blank slate and come up with something completely new.
No, absolutely. It reminds me, there's a playwright that I really enjoy, and he's known for writing plays about things that he can relate to. And for him, it's that he grew up and spent his early years working in like retail environments. So all of his plays are set in like a Hobby Lobby break room and like like a lunchroom of this random store. And it's like, how would that work? But it does, because it's got soul to it.
You have to pull from something, for sure.
Is that something, and I understand if you have to be coy, is that something that you anticipate carrying with you and the team throughout future projects and endeavors? Do you want to keep it with Icelandic elements all the way throughout, or do you guys get excited at the idea of trying something totally different and wild?
I think there's no chance something Icelandic doesn't slip through no matter what project we do. But obviously not being able to speak to the specific project, there is, we have now a bank of assets that use from Iceland. So it's very easy for us to incorporate that, and it makes it more efficient for us to kind of jump into the next game and have that bank that we created. But for us, obviously, I think pulling those elements in is always going to be at heart of what we make. But that doesn't mean that the next project necessarily might be, as directly referencing the country. But who knows?
Who knows? ... Yeah, wait and see.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've talked a little bit about the process, the early stages, the development and everything, but then we get to launch. Could you speak a little bit about the game's launch, the journey post-launch, how you guys have navigated it, all of that? Because you guys have been on a pretty remarkable journey since the game's initial release.
Yeah. The launch was, in a word, it just humbled us, right? We were launching our first game, and it was not easy at all. We had some really good reception on most of the facets of the game in terms of story and character development, visuals, sound design, all that stuff. But there were kind of two things that we kind of ran into trouble with immediately on launch, and we saw that coming from players. One of those things was Unreal Engine hitching, and that one sucked so bad because we thought we had taken care of that already. We had been testing it on tens and hundreds of PCs, and it ended up being a false positive, effectively an unchecked flag or something that we have fixed. So that really, hurt, especially the PC player base, more than, PlayStation 5 and Xbox, who are not going to have those types of problems. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, we were able to pass that super rapidly, like within a day or two in the initial launch. So that smoothed things over in regards to that. The second thing that, that hurt us on launch was the combat responsivity. So we got a lot of feedback on players who really wanted to see, felt that the combat wasn't as responsive as it could be, and that, like, they were not landing all the parries they should be. Attacks might not be connecting, the dodges were not going through in time, and that Rin was just the main character was just not maybe responsive and fluid enough in the movement as well, in terms of just connecting to the ground and being really, really fluid. And obviously, we're not a AAA studio. I mean, that's what we talked about before. So we definitely pushed and pushed and pushed, but it was clear that people wanted this to be more responsive and also just a bit more faster. Initially, when we came up with the design, we actually wanted it to be slightly more methodical, slightly more slower combat. But once we saw that feedback, we were immediately, the team, we just had a big old meeting, and we talked about it, and we talked about just taking every single thing. We read every single review that came out. We read every single Steam review that came out, every critic review, literally everything. And we, the common story here was that, like, people like this game, but there's this thing that's holding it back from being a great experience for everybody. And we want to fix that. So we're not going to do anything except focus, heads down, and we're going to get it right no matter what. And so the team really hunkered down. They are the true champions of this, the Enhanced Edition, which came out 2 months after the launch. So as we were about to book our, trips to Bahamas or something, we were like, all right, however hard this launch was, we've now got this ahead of us. So props to them for showing up and doing that. But really, we took every single thing we saw from those reviews, and we made the biggest to-do list, like just trying to get everything in and then consolidating the main things that were coming out of those kind of feedbacks and reviews. And remarkably, somehow by the end of those 2 months, the team had just kind of gotten through every single thing on the list. Like I'm talking everything, even adding some other things in. So the update that we put out, we completely reworked the combat. We redid almost a pass on every single animation in combat in the entire game. We also redid the entire tutorial onboarding to the game to get you quicker into the action. And we also revamped visually and overhauled Chapter 1 and fixed the performance where it was dropping in some areas all throughout the game. We also just taken everything on the list. We recorded some new voices to get you better onboarded to the story. And we kind of took out some of those pace slowers, which is kind of, you have to do an action, when you squeeze through a thing or when you duck behind, something that slows you down, or puzzles that didn't just really, were kind of meaningless. They were not getting you that big aha moment, but just kind of, press this. So we just took them out. So really all of that accumulated on top of a new difficulty, on top of new Game Plus with new units, all in 2 months. So really remarkable. And but we didn't feel right. The game that we put our heart and our souls into, and there was this one thing wrong with it that we just desperately needed to fix. So that's why we put out Enhanced Edition, and which is a free update to the game. And coming up to now, for this year, we have some bigger updates as well planned in the year. We already rolled out one update with the photo mode and outfits, new armor sets, and then we're probably going to have 2 or 3 major beats in the year as well.
Yeah, I gotta hand it to you guys. I mean, it's pretty remarkable because, like you said, I think I can only imagine. You're crunching to get the game ready to go. You launch it, and everybody just needs a break. Everyone wants a breather, and it would be so easy to just go, to just leave.
Yeah,
and we'll deal with it later. But you guys hunkered down, and the overhaul you guys have completed is pretty remarkable. And little stuff like the stereotypical Unreal Engine hitching, which is unfortunately kind of a staple of a lot of games that utilize the tool set. Hearing that you guys were able to fix that so fast is awesome. And then reworking combat and removing and restructuring and reordering puzzles, that's crazy. So,
it's a dizzying list.
Yeah, but I mean, good for you guys for hunkering down and listening to the feedback, because I think maybe that's also a temptation sometimes. And I like the word you used earlier, which was that the launch was humbling. But I think that's exactly the crucial bit, because it's a lot of places, I won't name any, but there's been stories of studios where they maybe have a really bad launch, and instead of thinking maybe we can fix this by doing this, this, and this, it turns into, no, they're wrong, we're right, it's a conspiracy, whatever, and it just doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. And instead, you guys have gone to the players.
You need to listen to your players. You need to. Those are the people who are buying our game and ultimately paying our salaries, right? And they're the ones that who they're making this game for. So if they have a problem with the game, of course we've got to do something about it. At least that's how we think about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the right way to think about it, in my humble opinion. And I think the results speak for themselves. You guys have seen a huge uptick in not just interest in the game, but also reviews have skyrocketed. Yeah. And I myself, like I said, I jumped in and I've been thoroughly impressed with it. And I find it very, very impressive what you guys have done. So truly, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Something I just want to squeeze in as well is I just want to be clear, we're also super grateful for the people who came in, after this initial hit and gave it a go after this Enhanced Edition, and are leaving these positive reviews. It truly means the world to the studio. I think half the team literally refreshes this page daily, checking and reading what's new. That's the level of obsession with the team. So they are really getting seen, and the team, has a big cheer whenever something comes in. So yeah, it's something that we're incredibly grateful.
Yeah. Well, and you guys should be proud. With this, I always have to ask, whenever I speak to somebody who works on a game for years and years, pours a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in it, I always want to ask, what is something in the game that you feel doesn't get enough attention or love or credit? Is there a fun fact, a fun little element that you wish people would notice? One that stood out to me was when you mentioned you hear the birds. Those are actual Icelandic birds that you guys have recorded. I love that kind of thing. Are there more like that where it's that's just cool?
That's a tough one. Shoot, you should have sent me this ahead of time so I could think this up.
It is literally like on the spot. Oh no. But like I said, the birds is a fair one. If you want to use the bird answer, that one's genuinely cool, because that's just one of those you find out about it and it adds layers, because people often they just kind of go on cruise control with games and they just assume bird sound, it's probably just some royalty free.
Get it online from Marketplace and
yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm super proud of everything we put in, and most things do get noticed. But I've been searching online at least for some of the Easter eggs that we planned in, and most of them have been found, but not all of them. So maybe just leaving it at that, and I'll see if something pops online.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I'm going to be looking through the comments too. I need people to go do some digging. Especially because I'm sure there's all sorts of little things. Well, you of course are in a position where you are going to see a lot of this. Are there pieces of the game as you go through development where maybe it's a surprise to you when you see it? Because of course everybody's working on the game, everybody's putting their own little touches and flares. I'm sure you don't know where every rock is placed, it's like those things are not reasonable. But is there anything when you've been playing the game that you've been surprised to see?
Yeah, I think like every playthrough for me is a surprise. Like I'm playing the game, I was playing the game every so often in development, and then leading up to launch, it was getting to like I would finish it once a week the year before launch. So really, like, I don't think anyone else has clocked 1,000 hours on Steam, but I have. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But the reason I'm playing it is not just like victory laps, right? I playing it up to launch because it's on Steam for us prior to the launch, so it racks up the time there as we're testing it. And really, what's great about the development process is that each time I'm playing through the game, there's something new added, and that's always a great experience because there's some surprise that's waiting for me in there. And the team as people are putting it in. And that's the cool thing the coolest thing about working in the games industry. It's a group effort. Everybody's putting their magic into this. And that's really what makes it shine and makes it magical for everybody, including, ourselves as developers.
I just to maybe wrap up with that before we tell everybody where they can get the game one more time. How do you, as somebody in a position of leadership, of course, within the studio, you're leading creatives who are notoriously sometimes difficult to wrangle. It's like herding cats. How do
probably me amongst those? Yeah.
How do you go about unifying everybody under a single vision, and then also keeping and allowing the best ideas to come up to the top, and also occasionally cutting bad ideas or ideas that won't work? How do you navigate that process?
Yeah, it's super tricky. I mean, you've got to, because like I said before, you've got to get the best out of everybody. Like that's the real goal. Like there's no world in which I'm coming in here and like I'm writing a 1,000-page document, a blueprint for everybody to follow on every single nuanced thing. So it just doesn't work. So what I try to do generally is set a direction, a goal that we're headed towards, and I try to identify the main things that we're going to achieve in that thing. So if we're talking about combat specifically for this game, I came in, I knew that we wanted to have a sword. I knew that we wanted to have magical abilities. I knew that, I wanted to be able to use those quite rapidly. But beyond that, it really comes down to, I cast that ball onto the team, and they are coming up with ideas and sketches and stuff like that. And they bring that back to me, and we have a big discussion, not just to present to me, but a group discussion about it. And from that, we really try to identify what is the most fun and exciting things, because we're all players. I mean, we're trying to identify what excites us. And usually past that process, we try to follow the pillars, as I mentioned before, really trying to see, like, is this, adding a, Barbie into the game, does that actually fulfill a pillar here? Like, probably not. So then we can discount that immediately. But adding an ability that complements all the other abilities, that might sound cool. From there, we really bring it into prototyping. But then it gets difficult after that as well, because then you've got to evaluate, like, is this good enough? Is this fun? Is this great? Do we enjoy this thing in the game? And then you have to identify, like, okay, is it not good enough yet? So we have to iterate 3 more times to get it good, or should we discard this immediately and abandon this idea? And I find that usually it just comes down to is someone on the team willing to champion the iteration? Because if someone is, they probably have a vision for it, and they're willing to run with their vision, and they're fighting for their vision. And that tells me, like, okay, I have to trust the process in this case. And we, up to a point. But if he spent like another 2 weeks on it, and it's getting nowhere, the team will probably all, comment on that. Like, I don't need to say
Hand
anything.
on the shoulder. It's time to let go.
This feature's not working out. But at heart, it's a collaborative process. And my role really is to just point the direction and try to shepherd them in the right direction rather than, coming up with everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and it's like you said, it's empowering the people to put their best forward and allow that to rise to the top. And I also like what you said about giving them, if somebody's willing to champion it, it's because they have a vision and passion, and then trusting them to do that. And that's something I imagine is doable with a smaller, more intimate team, where you're able to go and speak to this person and keep up with them and follow it in. And that's something that I think is a strength of these smaller, more dynamic teams like yours.
It's the biggest benefit for sure. Yeah, it's the biggest strength of these. And we like our size in that sense. Like, we have no ambitions to become 100, 200, 300 person studio. Like, we really enjoy just being able to have direct conversations with each other and being able to enjoy that deep collaboration. And you just know who to go to for each and every single feature of the game. And that really means that, and that's how we pulled off, all these updates for the enhanced edition within that amount of time, is because we're just able to run and we just trust each other, and we can just execute without too many gates, without too many check-ins, without too many, this and that. And that's I think what makes this process fun for us as well.
Absolutely. Well, to wrap this up, why don't you tell everybody where they can get the enhanced edition, all that stuff? Give them the rundown.
Yeah, you can get Echoes of the End on Steam. You can get it on PS5, and you can get it on Xbox X and S. If you have a PlayStation Plus subscription, you can also find the game there. It is there currently, at least at the airing of this video. So go check it out. And if you like it, please leave us a kind review. That really helps.
Absolutely. And I do recommend it, guys. Like, I'm not joking when I say they are punching well above their weight class. You'll be shocked that this was made by such a small team that has never done this before. Like, it's genuinely very impressive. So props to you guys. Send my love to the whole team. It's very exciting. And whenever I see something like this, where the first outing is this impressive, I'm always like, okay, I've got my eye on you. I'm watching what you guys do next, because I'm sure you've got some ideas. And like you said, learnings from the whole journey that got you here.
Yeah.
And next time, you can implement those from day one. And I can only fathom what you guys are cooking up. So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for chatting.
Yeah, thanks. Likewise.